Well, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loves.
The first time I saw him, I honestly thought he was already gone. His ribs pressed against his spotted coat like prison bars. His massive frame, which should have been powerful and proud, was nothing more than a skeleton draped in skin. He was lying in the corner of a concrete kennel, too weak to stand, his breathing shallow and labored. But his eyes, those enormous sunken eyes, they looked directly at me. And in that moment, something inside me shattered. I had volunteered at animal shelters before, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to witness. This Harlequin Great Dane, who the staff had named Apollo, had been found chained to a fence in an abandoned lot. No food, no water, no shelter. The veterinarian estimated he'd been there for weeks, maybe months. His body was shutting down. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, infected wounds, heartworm, the list went on and on. The shelter director pulled me aside that day and said something I'll never forget. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "He doesn't have much time. We're doing everything we can, but honestly, we don't know if he'll make it through the night." I couldn't leave. I sat outside his kennel for hours, just watching him breathe. Every shallow rise and fall of his chest felt like a prayer. I kept thinking, please don't give up. Not yet, not tonight. The shelter was closing, the lights were dimming, but I stayed there, on that cold concrete floor, my hand pressed against the cage bars, hoping somehow he could feel he wasn't alone anymore. And then something extraordinary happened. Apollo lifted his head, just slightly, and made a sound. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a whimper. It was something in between. A soft, deliberate vocalization that sounded almost like he was trying to speak, like he was trying to tell me something. He did it again and again, his voice weak but persistent. I moved closer to the bars and whispered, "I hear you. I'm listening." By the second week, something miraculous started happening. Apollo began to gain weight. Not much, but enough that you could see a slight difference. His ribs weren't quite as prominent. His coat, which had been dull and patchy, started to show hints of shine. Those signature Harlequin spots, black patches against pure white, began to gleam again. And most importantly, he started to stand on his own. The first time he walked across the living room without help, I cried. He was wobbly, unsteady, but he was moving. And when he reached me, he sat down heavily and looked up at my face with those big, soulful eyes. Then he did it again. He talked. This time, it sounded almost joyful, like he was celebrating his own progress. As the weeks turned into months, Apollo's transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. The heartworm treatment was painful and exhausting, but he fought through it with a courage I'd never seen in any creature before. His wounds healed, his weight normalized. That skeletal frame filled out into the powerful, majestic form a Harlequin Great Dane should have. He went from barely able to stand to running in the backyard, his striking spotted coat gleaming in the sunlight, his tail wagging with pure happiness. But the most incredible part? He never stopped talking. Every morning when I woke up, Apollo would be at my bedside, making his unique sounds, greeting me in his own special language. During walks, he'd come in on everything we passed: dogs, people, birds, squirrels. At night, he'd settle next to me on the couch and have entire conversations, as if he was telling me about his day. People who met Apollo were always stunned by this. "I've never heard a dog do that before," they'd say. And I'd smile and reply, "Apollo's not just any dog. He's a survivor, and I think he has a lot to say about it." I eventually adopted him officially. There was never any question about it. Apollo wasn't a foster anymore. He was family. He was the dog who taught me about resilience, about the will to live, and about the power of communication beyond words. Looking at him now, healthy and happy and full of life, It's almost impossible to believe he's the same dog I met in that shelter kennel. The dog who was hours away from death. The dog who used his voice, his unique, persistent voice, to tell me he wasn't ready to give up. Apollo changed my life in ways I never expected. He showed me that even in the darkest moments, even when everything seems hopeless, there's always a reason to keep fighting. He spoke when he had no strength left to bark. He stood when his legs could barely hold him. He loved when he had every reason to fear. Here's what I want to know from you. Some people say animals that survive extreme abuse can never fully trust humans again, that they're forever damaged. Others believe that with enough love and patience, any animal can heal and thrive. After watching Apollo's journey, what do you think? Can rescued animals truly overcome their past? Or does trauma leave permanent scars? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your perspective on this. Apollo's story isn't just about one dog. It's about every animal waiting in a shelter right now, hoping someone will see past their broken bodies and hear their silent voices. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, please consider sharing it. Like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to this channel, because every view, every share, every subscriber means one more person who might be inspired to save a life just like I saved Apollo's. Or maybe just like Apollo saved mine. Apollo's recovery was miraculous. By the second week, he started gaining weight. His ribs became less prominent, his dull coat began to shine, and those striking Harlequin spots gleamed again. Most importantly, he stood on his own. The first time he walked across the room unaided, I cried. He was wobbly but determined. When he reached me, he sat down and looked up with those soulful eyes. Then he talked again, this time joyfully, celebrating his own progress. Months passed. The heartworm treatment was brutal, but Apollo fought through it with extraordinary courage. His skeletal frame transformed into the powerful, majestic form a Great Dane should have. He went from barely standing to running in the backyard, his spotted coat gleaming, tail wagging with pure happiness. He never stopped talking. Every morning, he'd greet me with his unique sounds. During walks, he'd comment on everything we passed. People were always stunned. I officially adopted him. There was never any question. Apollo wasn't just a survivor, he was family. He taught me about resilience, about the will to live, about communication beyond words. His story proves that even in the darkest moments, there's always a reason to keep fighting.